Entered this phase where we have a very dangerous, perhaps globally lethal sense of exceptionalism. We're acting as though we've arrived at the end of history, at least in the sense that we have all the democracy that we need, and although certainly not all the capitalism that we need. Knowing this about my students, or at least that they're constantly bombarded with it, most of my teaching involves a fairly stock social foundations of education course. And given that title, I always begin with how my society is constituted. That is to say, I begin with the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States of America, and its amendments. I also add the UN Resolution of Human Rights, which is a document that certainly is very important in the global scene. My students have no trouble. There's an exceptionalism there. In many ways, the United States was the first modern democratic revolution. It evolved, the first modern constitution. That constitution and the freedoms and liberties ensconced in it is the paradigm for the UN resolution. It's been a beacon of the world. On the other hand, I want my students to see something important about that, which is that it's been an evolving and living document, that we are on this path. We're not at the end of this path. I point out to them that the Constitution is very clear that African Americans are 3/5 human beings. There's no doubt about it. They put it on paper. That document is also very clear that women are not to be enfranchised, and were not going to be until 90 years ago in 1920. And so if it's dead now, why now, rather than say in 1919, which would have left most of the students in my classes, at least, without the vote. And then I always point out to them when we're done with this that there's a very interesting right not in our Constitution, and I would remind you these are all either teachers or people who want to be teachers. You have no right to education in the United States of America. Please consult your Constitution and you will see that that is true. What we have here is a sort of, what Emerson would have called a flying, perfection, an ongoing perfectibility. You do have the right to education in the UN Resolution of Human Rights. Significantly enough, the president's wife, most specifically Franklin Delano Roosevelt's wife, in many ways Eleanor Roosevelt is the architect of that, and you know that a woman was influenced on it when you read it, because you find rights to families and the rest. So in one sense, we are a tremendous exception. And insofar as we're going to put an end to our own evolution and growth, it will be a horribly negative exception, because at the moment we're exporting a very narrow, predetermined, decontextualized notion of democracy to the world with tanks and helicopters. Mm-hmm.